I haven't done a video for the last couple of races, so I thought I'd quickly do one for Monaco and Canada. Monaco to me was boring, but I always find that race boring. Especially now when drivers complain they can't actually drive race. It's them just driving around. Monaco's not a race. That is driving around, in my, uninteresting opinion. And it was Nico Rosberg in his Mercedes who won, and I wasn't at all surprised. He was on pole. He was fastest throughout all the free practice sessions, so I think it would have been brave to say it was going to be someone else that won. And I felt kind of bad when he won, because instead of people being really happy that he was on pole when he managed to have a really great race, he was good after safety car periods and all that kind of stuff, that all people were really interested in was Mercedes secret tyre test with Pirelli, and there wasn't really much about him or his drive. But that's the sport, what can you do? Don't really have an opinion on the whole tyre testing issue, mostly because they kind of still have issues. And it won't be till maybe you get to places like Silverstone where you are much harder on your tyres because you've got those long, fast corners. If they do well there, then I think people can go, well, maybe they did benefit from it, even if they say they didn't. And anyways, they've got the tribunal on the 20th, so we'll just have to wait and see. And then you go from Monaco to Canada, which I thought was a good race. And I think it was the best race Sebastian's had this year so far. And you can say that because you never saw him in the coverage. He just built a gap, and he kept building and doing what he does best, really. And I thought it was absolutely disgusting of the crowd that they got there and booed him. It's like he is in possibly the best car, doing the best job you could ask your driver to do, which is win, and they're all they weren't a very gracious crowd. It was, I didn't like it at all. And yeah, I thought it was just an absolutely brilliant race for him. And Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton had good races in Canada, when their Monaco races weren't brilliant, but they weren't super terrible either. In Monaco, Lewis Hamilton came home P4 after starting second, but he didn't really look like he was going to make an impact over the weekend, so that result doesn't surprise me. And then Fernando came home P7 in Monaco, I think. And that was because Kimi Raikkonen, who was running in P5 the whole race, you might as well say, got into a bit of a tangle with Sergio Perez, and he ended up last, completely out of the points, and he had an absolutely blistering last half a dozen laps or so, where he managed to get back into the points with P10, bringing home one whole point, and being absolutely furious with Perez. which I kind of understand, because a lot of people say that, oh, Kimi should have moved out the way, but it's like, if you're racing, no, it's not racing if one person has to just move out the way so that they don't get hit. I don't think there was a gap that Sergio Perez was ever going to fit into, to be honest. So yes, he might have done it to Jenson and Fernando, but on both occasions, they both moved out of the way so that they wouldn't get hit. And I just think that Kimi was on the racing line. He didn't have to move, so I think that it's fair to say that Sergio probably should wear the brunt of the blame there. And then he ended up retiring anyways because of brake problem, I think. And then Kimi's his race in Canada was dreadful. He didn't seem not comfortable. He just didn't seem like the car was how he wanted it during free practice. Then there was an issue with his brakes that ended his free practice on the Friday. It looked a bit better on the Saturday, FP3. Qualifying was, it was a bit lackluster. And then during the race, brake problems again, fuel problems, and to top it all off, he got lapped by Sebastian in his Red Bull. And that kind of just sums it up. It wasn't a great weekend for Lotus, and it was massive deja vu compared to last year, where Canada and Monaco were not great races for them last year. They're not great races this year. So he slipped down a place in the Drivers' Championship. He's now third, and I think it's about 50 points off Sebastian now. And Lotus have also gone down in the Constructors' Championship. They're sitting in fourth now, since Romain Grosjean hasn't had a couple of good races either. Monaco was kind of a disaster with the accident he had with Daniel Ricciardo. And then Canada, he just seemed not really... Yeah, I just don't think it was a good race. A good weekend for the whole team, to be honest. What else? Now we're on our way to Silverstone. Yay! We're back in Europe again, since they've already been to Spain, and they're bringing the hard and the medium tyre. Yeah, that's right, the two hardest ones. And if I had to predict, I reckon it will be the Mercedes or Red Bull that will be on pole. Doesn't matter if it's wet or dry. They go the best on the harder tyres. But in the race, if Lotus can get everything back to where they were at the very start of the season, where Kimi was on the podium, I wouldn't discount them for a podium, or maybe a win, depending how they are. And don't discount Fernando either. It would be really great to put Felipe Massa in that group, but he has a good race with Ferrari, and then a couple of not good races, then a bit better race, and then he kind of back and forward, and sometimes the gulf between the two just gets a bit bigger every race. And I feel really bad for Nico Hülkenberg. When is Sauber going to give him a car he can actually race rather than drive? Because right now, the whole point of him moving to Sauber was podiums, and he's barely getting into the points. So hopefully that changes. Alright.